Virgil stepped first and led, and I stopped and touched and held that cross that I happened to have around my neck, and went descending down that land, the seat and the curse of all evil men. And there before me stands the beast which defiles and claws and feeds itself on them. The demon, Minos, who judges the damned, and with his tail encircles them. Hell's gate expands to take them all inside, and inhaling them in, it locks in place its iron jaws, and for every ring he ties around those lost, the more that soul is made to fall in, and the darker its shade in black. Millions of souls travailed before him, but he only stalled when he saw us. I'm not a common doorman where you freely can come in, but then he lets you leave and go like that. Be not deceived, son of man. The entrance is wide, but when you fall in, there is no coming back. You cannot block his way. My teacher stopped and spoke and had this last reply. It's fated by a power on high, stronger than yours, that loosens and binds, that created and scattered and cast you out of the sky, and which needs not to answer why. I'd come and reached a plain which was dark and vast and broad, and there was a roaring wind like a hurricane at sea when the ocean falls in and is buckling under the all-consuming storm. From every part and side there were cries for help and screams. I saw the wind change, but the suffering remained. They cursed God and his judgment, and in all things they ceaselessly blasphemed. I realized there were those who in the past had never restrained their desires, chained to sex and immersed in the darkness, cold to the light. They now have no hope of rest, or of respite, or of less pain. I spoke to my guide and said this and asked, Teacher, who are they, and how did they merit this place? He soon leant in and replied, On the right, see the liar who bedded the state and lusting higher. She set the Sun King down. There's Henry, 6 wedded, thought great, but most hated by God. Lucrezia by her papal father. And see that rapist, the Marquis of Sade, and all such ilk that defiled and marred the human race. And there's the Queen of the Nile, with both her lovers still. Cleopatra, the lustful. And of the dead he showed me 1,000, countless, others more. For my curiosity, it all fell short, and it would not yet be enough still. So I spoke and said in reply, "Poet, great and wise like no other, can I not now hope that I may talk with those two souls who, locked together, languish and fly, and walk above the rest? Did you not see them go by? They seemed like leaves that flew and that soared, and that vanished forever in the blue of the sky." He replied, "Wherever causes more pain and care and more distress, this storm it pushes and leads them and tortures them there. Whenever it brings or stands them near and the wind pauses, you can ask them then to be here by that single blink of love and of happiness they felt within each other's hands, but deceived them, and that fell through their fingers like water in sand. Even in hell they keep that dear." And so, when they fell and lingered near, led close by to us, I said this in these words: "Restless souls, whose eternity is endless, agony, tears, sit apart and come and speak and tell, if no other one else denies this us. Like innocent pair-bound birds, when in a sunlit park they seek the ground to feed and eat a crumb that sits between the feet of a mother and her infant son, who take the bread they're eating on and give it them instead, but then when they are fed they leave and are forever gone. They flying so thus glided gracefully, hell's agony and screams above." Gracious soul that visits the despair of the circle of lust, the den and the home of the damned, that visits so us that found the earth as if clean, and then that drowned it in blood. We'd pray for your journey back there, but no one here can, and I will never have the prayer that will ever be heard again. We all are cast from the hand and the face of the Lord, forever, in eternity cursed of the race of man. I remember when, on earth, far back, I'd sit near and lean on him and fall on his lap and watch the sunset and the stars on the beach and the sand of the shore. But that was the past, and here it all hurts, and there are no sunsets in the dark. For that fact, you showed us compassion. So while the winds cease, I'll talk. But then when they start, I will not speak anymore. Love, which seizes gentle hearts with sudden, violent passion, seized this boy's soul and flayed him part by part until it had skinned him live and whole. It seized me simultaneously and stained my heart forever, a crimson dark shade of blood and violet satin. Love, which never lets her, real love, either start or finish, or ever let be, showed me in him the riches of all the pleasure there is. And though it breathed in ecstasy one breath, it still holds me within, and refuses me ever to forgive me or leave. When love came, choked my soul and tore my walls of diligence. It changed my life and made me whole, where there used to be only emptiness. But he that killed me will be left to sit forever in fear and alone. In that pit of ice where's damned all those that are guilty of killing innocent breath. But we're here together, both in life and in death. As I saw them now and heard her words, amazed and awed, in speechlessness listening, I realized who they were and how they died, and I bowed and dropped my face until my guide, who to make me speak would read my mind and fake that he could not, stood near and in a low tone whispered, "What are you thinking?" And turning I replied and spoke of this, the pain of it. Sometimes desire it's a smoke and not a flame, and's often got a hollow taste. But how could it feed them on such a diamond plate, and then leave them now here to swallow and drown in the fire of this burning brimstone lake? That which killed them first crawled in and whispered and taught him in his ear to kiss her every part and hold her near and call on her name. It sat at the grill of her heart and told her and taught her to smile and laugh, and wanting him to fade and resist, but bite her lip and let him say. And then they died and came and were shackled in these steel chains, and it brought them here to this cold and dark and evil place. Francesca, such is your pain that I myself will cry. But tell me how and why. Tell me, I said this and turned and now replied. When did you first ingest that fire that touches when doubt is mixed and burned in desire? Did you feel that? She sighed. In that sea which is a creeping, subtle agony, it's called on earth humanity. What hurts the most is to remember a time in which you both were truly happy. But if you really wish to know, how did he first sleep with me, first sin, die, and how it begun, I'll speak as one who remembers something long, far, vanished, gone, and who, hurting inside, remembers the past, and silently weeps, and silently cries. On my bed at night we used to read a novel on a wife's neglect. No other one was present except my husband's trust. But several times we'd read a line, and before I'd go on, I'd look up. He held and cut my gaze, and turning it away elsewhere, I felt myself blush. Couldn't help myself enough to not then look back up. And then when together we'd gaze and stare at one another, bathed and burned in a bleeding, meaningful silence, we'd lie to ourselves and deny and resist that need and craving. But it was this one moment forever that undid us. while we read of the wife's affair and faithlessness, of how she gave in, smiled and kissed him, her husband's brother, when he couldn't bear it anymore, and confessed how much he'd want and he loved her. I looked in his eyes and now saw how just once he needed to try this. And then he saw to sit near and leant in and kissed me here, trembling. Oh, in such a way we fell and slipped and laid a seed that penetrated us and made us trip and fall. And when it bent me back upon all fours, it gave it to us, gave that which we'd longed for and loved. And on that day, we did not sit and read anymore. While she talked and spoke all this, I looked at him who seemed as if he'd cry within a scream. But meanwhile, the storm of soot and mud called us and took them both away, and I felt heavy within, stood up to cry, but dropped as a corpse does, with a deafening